You're listening to the Para is My Normal podcast. We are a bit science, a bit woo, and all curious about that which defies explanation because sometimes normal just isn't.
Welcome to Para's My Normal, the podcast, where the unknown is not only explored, it's expected. I'm today's host, Jennifer Lynn, and today we're rewinding time to the creaky floorboards of history, to the place where modern ghost hunting may have first knocked at the door, literally. Before spirit boxes and REM pods, there were mysterious knocks in a New York farmhouse. Before EVPs and EMFs, there were raps on the wall and whispers in seance rooms. And believe it or not, a huge chunk of what we do in modern-day paranormal investigation still echoes those early days of spiritualism. So grab a blanket, dim the lights, and prepare to trace the spirit line all the way back from 1848 till today. Let's set the stage. It's the 1840s. You live in rural New York. The telegraph is just becoming a thing. Tuberculosis is everywhere, and the average life expectancy is around 40 years. Grief isn't an occasional visitor. It's a roommate. People are desperate for answers, desperate for signs, desperate for meaning. And in that world, if someone told you they could speak to the dead, you might believe them. Into that grief-soaked society came two girls, Kate and Margaret Fox, ages 11 and 14. And in 1848, they claimed that they could communicate with a spirit haunting their family's farmhouse in Hydesville, New York. Using raps and knocks, one for yes, two for no, the spirit, they said, was a murdered peddler buried in their cellar. This wasn't a cute parlor trick. Their mother called the neighbors. Word spread. Crowds came. Soon, their older sister Leah took charge, organizing public demonstrations. The Fox sisters became sensations, and whether you believed or doubted, you were watching something new, the birth of interactive ghost communication. Now, spiritualism exploded like wildfire. Within a few years, seances were happening in every city. Mediums, many of them women, became respected figures in society. People paid to hear from their loved ones, to attend spirit photography sessions, or even to be able to experience table tipping and automatic writing. So why did it catch on? Because grief was everywhere. The Civil War would soon kill 600,000 Americans. Child mortality was staggering. There were no grief counselors, no trauma therapy, no clean narrative to follow. Spiritualism offered something concrete: structure, process, comfort. And remember, this was the same era that saw the invention of the telegraph, the first time invisible messages could travel across space instantly. People were already primed to believe that unseen forces could deliver messages. Spiritualism became more than belief. It was a culture, a religion without hierarchy, a science of the soul. Even in modern days, people crave connection. And in eras marked by war, pandemics, and mass death, that craving becomes a collective need. Now, whether it was the Civil War, the Spanish flu, or more recently the COVID-19 pandemic, belief in an afterlife and interest in the paranormal surge in times of mass loss. Spiritualism gave structure to that grief. It didn't just claim there was an afterlife, it gave you a phone number for it. Now, psychologically, the need to do something, to speak, ask, to wait for a response even, gave mourners agency. In that way, the seance became therapeutic. It still is in many ways. Modern ghost hunters aren't just chasing proof, they're often chasing meaning. And spiritualism gave us a framework for that pursuit. Now, the Fox sisters became celebrities. They toured major cities, performing in packed theaters. Scientists observed them. Priests debated them. Newspapers followed their every move. But the pressure and the scrutiny never let up. By 1888, the system cracked. Margaret Fox, struggling with alcoholism and financial ruin, confessed in public that the raps had been faked, created by cracking their toe joints. She even demonstrated it live there in front of everyone. The world gasped. Debunkers rejoiced. But then Margaret recanted. She said the confession was coerced, that they had actually been communicating with spirits all along. So what do we believe? Well, fortunately, to this day, no one really knows for sure. But here's what we do know. The confession came too late to undo the revolution they had sparked. Spiritualism had taken root. Whether it was born in truth or trickery, it had evolved into something real for millions of people. And to understand how deeply spiritualism seeped into our society, you have to look at how people lived it. Homes had parlor rooms set aside for seances. Families even posed for post-mortem photography, often with the deceased propped up beside them. Women, often excluded from religious or political leadership, became powerful mediums, spiritual advisors, and even public figures. Mourning rituals included black veils, lockets with hair, and months of social withdrawal, all of which helped build a culture of reverence for the dead. Spiritualism was also progressive. It supported abolition, women's rights, and education reform. Mediums like the Fox sisters were celebrities in their time, and often controversial, especially for speaking in public. It wasn't just about contacting the dead, it was about rewriting society's contract with death itself. Now, spiritualism just didn't shape beliefs, it shaped buildings. Take the iconic Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. After the death of her daughter and husband, Sarah Winchester turned to a medium. The message, spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifles, were haunting her, and the only way to appease them was to never stop building. So she did, and for 38 years, she kept expanding her home. But this wasn't expansion for comfort, it was architectural defense. The house was a labyrinth meant to confuse spirits, staircases that led to ceilings, doors that opened to 10-foot drops, rooms within rooms, seance chamber with a hidden entrance and 3 exits. To a 19th century spiritualist, these weren't quirks, they were ritual geometry. They reflected a belief that spirits could be redirected, trapped, or even disoriented by intentional design. Now shift to the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana. It may not have been built for spirits, but over time it became a kind of spiritualist echo chamber. There's an infamous mirror said to trap the souls of the Woodruff family. Visitors report handprints, shadow figures, and shifting images. In spiritualism, mirrors are portals, and covering them after a death was a sacred act of respect, meant to protect both the living and the dead. The main staircase has been called a vortex, a point of strange energy. And the house's original design includes strong symmetry, a common feature in folk, spiritual, and spiritualist homes meant to promote balance and to repel spiritual intrusion. But spiritualist architecture isn't only in grand mansions. Head to Napanoch, New York, and you'll find the Shanley Hotel. Built in 1845 and then rebuilt in 1895, it became a haven for both guests and allegedly ghosts. The Shanley family were known believers in spiritualism, and the structure reflects that. Multiple open parlors, ideal for seances and gatherings. Wide central hallways that allow energy to flow interrupted. Small, enclosed sitting rooms designed for quiet, mediumistic work. A third-floor attic believed to have been used for isolated spirit communication. The layout promotes both privacy and connection, a classic spiritualist principle. Rooms feel intimate. Energy flows freely. Guests and investigators alike report consistent spiritual interaction in the most central gathering areas, suggesting the hotel may not just have house ghosts, but have been built to welcome them. And then there's Casadega, Florida, an entire town founded by spiritualists in 1894. It was designed as a southern haven for mediums, healers, and seekers. Walk its streets and you'll find Victorian homes with spirit rooms, buildings aligned with magnetic energy lines. No sharp corners in spiritual gathering halls to prevent energy from getting stuck. Wraparound porches for peaceful transition between inside and out, a metaphor for life and the afterlife. Even today, Casadega remains active. Residents still practice mediumship, hold seances, and run spiritualistic churches and classes. The energy of the place feels layered, as if the living and the dead share a carefully negotiated lease on the land. So what do all these buildings have in common? They were designed with intention, whether to confuse spirits, contain them, invite them in, or gently guide them out. These structures reflect a belief that architecture isn't just for people, it's for presence. And that belief that space can shape spirit is still with us today. Paranormal investigation today owes a tremendous debt to spiritualism. Just compare a seance circle to the modern EVP session. The format's nearly identical. People gather together in an area, typically a dark room, questions asked, then there's silence, then there's maybe a sound or a response, and then we interpret that. Now, the tools have changed. Candles are swapped for REM pods, planchettes traded for spirit boxes, but the purpose remains the same. Investigators still enter dark rooms and ask, "Is anyone here with us?" The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's sacred. And that same tension-filled space the Fox sisters once inhabited. And when a REM pod lights up or a garbled voice appears through the static, it feels like a conversation across time. Trigger objects, spirit communication apps, EMF detectors, they're just modern takes on old rituals. Even the language is inherited. When we invite spirits to communicate or set the energy, we're speaking the dialect of spiritualism. Now, the echoes of spiritualism didn't stop in the 1800s. They've rippled into some of the most famous hauntings and investigators of the last century. Ed and Lorraine Warren, two of the most well-known figures in paranormal history. I'm sure you've heard of them. Their investigations, from the Amityville Horror to The Conjuring, didn't just focus on ghost detection. They were deeply spiritualist in nature. Lorraine often described herself as a clairvoyant and a light trance medium, while Ed was a demonologist trained in religious traditions. Together, their investigations centered on identifying spirits, understanding their emotional motives, and often spiritually helping them or protecting people from them. Now, in the Perrin family case, which inspired The Conjuring, the Warrens believed that the hauntings were linked to the spirit of a woman accused of witchcraft. They conducted seances, worked with clergy, and used symbolic rituals. Sound familiar? That's pure spiritualism. Ritual, storytelling, and direct communication with the dead. Modern paranormal shows have continued this lineage. Ghost Adventures, Paranormal State, Kindred Spirits. Each team approaches hauntings not just scientifically, but narratively. They're not just there to record EMF spikes. They ask, who is the spirit? Why are they here? How can we help? Kindred Spirits, for instance, often focuses on giving voices to the dead. Amy Burney and Adam Berry explore personal histories of spirits, helping both the living and the dead find peace. The investigative method, the structured interviews, the environmental setup, and guided communication looks eerily like a seance with the video crew. Even haunted artifact collections like the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal approach the paranormal like spiritualists. These items aren't treated as curiosities, they're treated as spiritually active, emotionally charged, and requiring respect, boundary setting, and ritual interaction. So from the Fox sisters to the Warrens to today's ghost hunting teams, spiritualist blueprint endures. Two of the most interesting pieces of modern ghost hunting equipment, the Ovilus and the Chattergeist, carry spiritualism's legacy in their circuits. The Ovilus, created by Bill Chappell, translates environmental readings like temperature, EMF, and barometric changes into words selected from a preset vocabulary. The idea is that spirits manipulate these readings to choose a word that becomes vocalized by the device. This is mechanical mediumship. Like a human medium, the Ovilus filters information from the unseen into short, emotionally resonant responses. Instead of using a trance or intuition, it uses data. Instead of a human vocabulary, it pulls from a digital one. Now, the Chattergeist, however, takes this idea even further and more responsibly. Unlike apps or hybrid tech, the Chattergeist is a standalone piece of hardware. It's not a phone app, and it has no access to Wi-Fi, GPS, or even microphones. This removes a massive variable in ghost tech: external interference. Chattergeist relies purely on internal sensors, which means any interaction is either environmentally triggered or something else entirely. Where the Ovilus invites interpretation, the Chattergeist removes distraction. It mimics the function of a medium, but without potential tech contamination. Both devices reflect the core spiritualistic belief that spirits can influence the environment to deliver communications. But like old mediums, the response is never clear. It's symbolic, it's fragmented, and always needs human interpretation. And that's not a flaw, that's the format. That's mediumship with the circuit board. To understand modern spirit communication tools, we also have to revisit a favorite tool of the 19th century of mediums, which is automatic writing. Now, automatic writing involves entering a trance state and allowing a spirit to guide the medium's hand. What is produced is usually fragmented, strange symbols, single words, poetic phrases. Meaning isn't always obvious. It must be interpreted. Now consider modern tools like Necrophonic, Spirit Boxes, GhostTube, Vox, and similar apps. These don't provide complete answers. They offer fragments, garbled audio, phonetic whispers, single word anomalies. Just like in automatic writing, these tools require the user to assemble meaning from pieces. So spirit boxes sweep through radio frequencies at high speed. Occasionally, snippets of words seem to appear, and when they align with the investigator's question, they feel like responses. But like automatic writing, it's never direct. It's filtered, fragmented, emotional. GhostTube, Vox, and similar apps simulate this using internal sound banks. While skeptics are right to challenge these apps' randomness, the phenomenon isn't about randomness. It's about invitation and interaction. Much like automatic writing was as much a meditative practice as a communicative one, these tools create a focus point, a ritual act that tunes the investigator to potential interaction. Where automatic writing relied on muscle movement and intuition, modern apps rely on algorithms and timing. But in both cases, the spirit's voice is filtered, symbolic, and emotional, not literal. Now let's dive even deeper into one of the most intriguing paranormal phenomena, liminal space. So liminal comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. These are in-between spaces, psychologically and physically. Think of a school hallway at night, an empty theater, a stairwell, a hospital wing that hasn't been used in years. These places are unsettling because they don't feel finished. They're designed for transition, not presence. You pass through them, you don't live in them. And that makes them perfect for ghosts. Think about it. If a spirit is caught between life and death, wouldn't it make sense for it to linger in a place designed to hold things temporarily? Many investigators report heightened activity in the tunnels beneath Eloise Asylum, the hallways of Poasttown Elementary, the stairwells of the Ohio State Reformatory, or even the wings of hospitals, prisons, and hotels left abandoned. Now, in folklore, liminal spaces are also sites of transformation. Think crossroads, bridges, doorways. These are all places where magic, fate, or spirits might appear. That same mythic logic applies to modern haunted spaces, and architecture amplifies this. Echoes behave differently in empty gyms. Light reflects strangely in stairwells. Our own psychology plays tricks in transitional spaces. And maybe spirits do too. Paranormal phenomena thrives in these gaps between intention and accident, memory and reality, presence and absence. Liminal spaces are emotional echo chambers, and spiritualists knew it. That's why seance rooms were often windowless. Wide thresholds and mirrors were treated with caution. The veil thins in the in-between. From the very beginning, the Fox sisters were walking a tightrope between reverence and ridicule. Some saw them as divine messengers, others as cheap performers. Newspapers printed glowing testimonies next to harsh exposés. Crowds came to witness and to challenge. The tension became a defining feature of spiritualism. It was never allowed to rest quietly in the world of faith. It had to prove itself over and over again. And that pattern continues today. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, was a devout spiritualist. He wrote books, gave lectures, and traveled the world promoting mediumship and life after death. He believed science and spirit could coexist. He once said, "The evidence for spirit communication is just as strong as that for any scientific discovery." Then there's Harry Houdini, escape artist, skeptic, and grief-stricken son. After his mother's death, Houdini visited dozens of mediums hoping to hear from her. Instead, he found tricks. He made it his mission to expose fraudulent psychics and publicly humiliate them. Their friendship turned into a feud. Doyle believed, Houdini investigated. Doyle sent Houdini messages he believed came from the beyond. Houdini called it cruel nonsense. Doyle accused him of psychic denial. Houdini accused Doyle of gullibility. Sound familiar? Today we still see these archetypes, the believer who seeks meaning and the skeptic who demands proof. And we need both. Today's paranormal investigators often carry both hats. They're believers and debunkers. They walk into a haunted space not just with open hearts, but with cameras, control methods, and Faraday bags. And yet, even the most data-driven among us can feel the emotional gravity of a cold spot, a whispered name, or a shadow that shouldn't be there. Shows like BuzzFeed Unsolved have even leaned into this split, with one host believing deeply and the other mocking every EVP. The result? More honesty, more relatability. Because the paranormal isn't black and white, it's a spectrum of interpretation. That's what makes this work so compelling. The haunting isn't just a location, it's in the tension between belief and proof, experience and evidence, emotion and measurement. Whether you believe, debunk, or dance between the two, you're still participating in the same act, seeking. So, what have we really uncovered here? That the story of the Fox sisters isn't just a strange footnote in the paranormal history, it's the blueprint. Their techniques, intentional communication, interpretation of sound, ritual setting, have become our modern methods. Their beliefs that the dead can communicate with the living through signs and structure continue in every spirit box session, every word from a Chattergeist, every time we set up a camera in an empty hallway and wait. This episode isn't about whether the Fox sisters were real or fraudulent. It's about what they started and how we still carry it forward. Every investigation, every haunted object, every shadow seen out of the corner of your eye, it's part of the same story. One of longing, one of ritual, one of connection. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Para is My Normal. I'm Jennifer Lynn, and whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or just a curious wanderer, don't fear the truth. Follow it. Until next time, stay curious, stay respectful, and stay paranormal.